Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Michelle. Michelle is a dear friend of mine. I met her 12 years ago when I got the opportunity to deliver her first baby. She tells her story tonight. It is a very unique story of her journey through caring for her husband, who was unfortunately diagnosed with a terminal illness at a very young age. And she describes her experience with going through that as a mom of 3 kids. She is a very spiritual person, and I admire her in so many ways. I know you guys are going to appreciate this story tonight. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Michelle to the podcast.
Hey, it's so good to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here. So I have to tell the listeners how me and you know each other because it's a really fun, long story. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I met you when you were delivering your very first baby.
Yes, 2013.
2013. So
Yes.
over 10 years ago.
Yes, it's crazy.
Yes. And then so we bonded, and that happened to me quite a few times in my 10 years as a labor and delivery nurse. I became really good friends with a patient, and then you worked down the hall for me because you were ER nurse.
Yes.
So after that delivery, we would see each other all the time at work in the cafeteria. We became friends.
I love it.
Yep.
Yes. So good.
Yeah. And then we've just kind of lived these parallel lives since then.
We have. I mean, I think that we first shared that we were pregnant. You were pregnant with your twins, and I was pregnant with one that later I miscarried with. But I always think about you're like on my trajectory, so when
Of where that baby would have been.
when they're born, I think we were pregnant right along each other at the time, but we ran into each other at the cafeteria, so that was fun.
Yeah. And then a few years ago, I joined a new church, local church for Scythe, and you were there. And so now we go to the same church.
Yes, we do. We do. I now go to the Dawson campus, but we did meet there. Yeah, and it was great to see you there.
Yes. Well, that brings me to the quote we're going to start our episode out with. So it came to me during the church service with Pastor Chris. Love him, by the way. And he was talking. Isn't he great? I want to be his child or his best friend, something like adopt me. He was talking about the church's mission for the year, and it was follow Jesus, find your people, and live on mission. And when he said that, you are who I thought of. You do those 3 things so perfectly. Yes. So the quote for your episode is from Romans 8:38 through 39. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height or depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. What does that make you feel?
I mean, I think I just love God's word. And I think that the fact that you thought of me and that verse is so true. Like nothing will be able to separate me from how much God loves me and how much, my love towards him. I hope people can see through my story that I have not lost my faith, haven't lost my hope in him, but he loves us so, so much. And things are going to happen in our lives that are hard, but he gives us the strength to get through them and he gives us the hope to get through them. So that's really sweet. I do love that verse, Romans 8. Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking for Bible verses that embodied strength because that's what I think of when I think of you. I think of mental strength. And the whole topic, Ashley's episode a few episodes ago, we talked about how, again, Pastor Chris, he's so influential in my life. He talked about when you're going through something, do people see Jesus in your suffering? Do you see Jesus in your suffering? And you're definitely someone that has gone through so much in your life at such a young age, things that you could have never even planned for. I mean, what you've gone through, no one could have ever predicted, but you have always had that foundation of God just bright, shining from you.
So sweet. You're so sweet. Well, I mean, I do feel it. And I'm now still in this process and this journey, but am recognizing that, so much of my story, my past, God is really using. And I think he's using it in more simpler ways than I would think, but he's using it in just the relationships that I have with people, and people see him hopefully through me. I mean, that means the world to me, that someone, especially like you. I mean, I still remember in the labor and delivery room, and my husband Jason was like, we need to invite her to church, she's so sweet. But anyways, I appreciate that genuinely. I mean, I think that, yeah, God allows us to go through hard things so that he
Yeah.
can ultimately have all the glory. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. No, I remember talking to you about my faith in that room
Yeah.
because it wasn't very strong yet. I was still
Mhm.
struggling. I didn't know where my place was. I didn't grow up in a religious household. And you were like a beacon. You were like a lighthouse of faith. And I just remember thinking, gosh, you'd be such a good friend to have for
You're
spiritual
so
growth.
Yeah, you're so
Yeah.
sweet. Well, I mean, it didn't just go happen overnight,
Yeah.
like it started, back when I was 6, and I am blessed to have been raised in a home that really walked the talk. My parents, it's not just what they showed up on Sunday and then did everything else the 6 days of the week. They really truly walked their faith, walked a relationship with Jesus on a daily basis. So I just am blessed to been able to receive that and live in a home like that. So I think my journey being able to handle and deal with the things that I'm walking through, it started way back when I was 6, and I gave my life to Jesus. So it doesn't happen overnight, and it's one step at a time. Just keep putting your foot forward.
Yeah. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And I actually have that. Like, I definitely had that thought in my mind when I was kind of thinking and preparing. I'm like, our relationship with Jesus is exactly that. Because I know you're a runner, and I remember being so fascinated with you running, 100 miles, I think, back in 2013. You were like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, 100-mile. And I was like, that is so pertinent for Megan, is because all of our life, it's not just a sprint. Like, it's a long marathon. And then even within training, you're gonna have the hills and the hurdles and the detours and the bumps and the puddles and all the things. And as long as you just keep going, you might be sidelined and might just be not a participant anymore, but just get back into the race and just keep going one step forward. You'll get there. It's one day
Yeah.
at a time.
One day at a time.
Yeah,
Oh,
one day
that.
at a time. That's all we can do.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited for you to share your story. I know your story. And it's such an honor to have you on the show to give
Thank you.
people, that story of hope. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Okay. Well, I will definitely start off with, I appreciate you allowing me to share the story, because so much of what has just transpired this last 5 years is really kind of, and being in the medical field as a nurse, I was blindsided. So I really am hopeful that it will give other people who are actually have a diagnosis that they're walking through, that they know about it. But if they don't, then they can be just more aware of the symptoms of loved ones around them. Well, I'll start off. I'm married to my husband Jason, and we have 3 beautiful girls. And my story, I've been through a lot, but nothing traumatic. I would say just health issues, kidney stones, nephrostomy tubes, all the things, more medical. But our story really starts off with Jason. So 2018, I would start probably there. I was pregnant with my second, and he had changed jobs and left a job and was changing jobs. And shortly after that, he just didn't seem like himself. And I'm postpartum with my second child. And looking back, I now recognize all these signs. But at the time, his lack of contentment with just life was very alarming to me. It just seemed like he was more moody, a little more quick to be angry, irritable, and you chalk it up as maybe just a little stress, midlife crisis a little bit. And moving into 2018, he decided he wanted to go back to school. So, he's just switched a job. He decided to go back to school. And here I'm thinking, I don't want to go back to work more. Let's stay on budget. So I had kind of talked him into moving into the lower level of my parents' home. And it's a fully finished basement. And thankfully, he was on board. He understood. We moved out of our house, we rented it out. And that's kind of when things kind of started to unravel. So he turned 40. We went on a great 40 birthday with his sister and brother-in-law, and ended up pregnant with my third baby. We love her dearly, but she was a surprise. And so there was a lot of change happening. He moved jobs. He wanted to go back to school. I ended up getting pregnant. My pregnancy was high risk. I had multiple complications, in and out of the hospital for 7 months. And I really noticed now there was that lack of disconnection relationally with him. Fast forward, I have my daughter, and of moving into 2020. So January 2020, I remember we finished out volunteering with our church at Passion Conference down with Louis Giglio and entering into the Eurovision, 2020. And things were just looking better, looking bright. I was coming out from having a baby and feeling recovered. And it just nothing changed with him. It was like the shift just got wider and wider. The separation between me and him just continued to get wider. And I remember thinking, man, I go and have three babies, and all of a sudden I just can't connect with my husband anymore. And at this time, we'd been married 11 years, somewhere around there. And it kind of just that it hit really hard. He was begging to change jobs again. And I'm thinking, what is going on? And he did change jobs. I was like, as long as you have a job, go to work. That's fine. I don't care what you do at this point. You just seem really discontent in life. But if you think that this is going to help you get to future goals, now I say discontentment, he still was goal oriented. So he was still working full time. He was still in school, like part time. He had picked up a job at our local radio station. I don't know, and as a radio host, and he started loving it. So he still was goal oriented, but as far as just getting into something, he really had no motivation once he started it, and just really discontent, and the irritability and the lack of relational connection with me was getting wider. And so he's switched jobs, and within the first 2 weeks, it just hit hard. He just walked out of his job. I don't even remember what happened, truthfully, but I remember my mom, I was at work, my 12-hour shift, and she was like, Michelle, Jason just said he got fired. And I'm like, what? So I call a good friend that, Megan, I know knows, that had worked with me as a nurse in the emergency room and would moved on to neurology. And I bawled my eyes out on the phone. I was in the driveway, just like, what is happening with him? I don't understand. He's never been like this. And thankfully, in God's grace and his mercy, he just put me with the right people. So knew Jason enough to know that this wasn't him. And we got him in within a day or two, evaluated an MRI of his brain. And I say all this because it doesn't usually happen this quickly, but an MRI within the next day. And I got a full diagnosis on the 30th of October, which is that Friday, I think, that he had dementia. And it's called frontotemporal dementia, or frontotemporal degeneration. Essentially, it is a form of dementia, and it targets early age onset of individuals. So usually around 29 to 59. I know that with research, things are shifting a little bit as far as the age bracket, but this has almost been 5 years now. I was blindsided. I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm a nurse, and how did I not see the signs? We think of dementia as Alzheimer's, and then we think of age, and then we think of memory. But we don't think that dementia could affect a 41-year-old or a 42-year-old. So it hit hard. At that point, I think that just so much change had happened with him that he really, at that point, could not fully understand and carry the weight and the gravity of his diagnosis. I say that because I asked, I told him what he was diagnosed with. No crying, no tears, just kind of sat there and said, man, I'm going to miss my girls. My girls are going to miss me. And I'm like, bawling. And he's like, so are you going to have to put me, in a facility to help take care of me? I'm like, I'm going to hope not. I hadn't even thought that far ahead, but it was just very clear and evident that he was not connected. It was the frontal lobe, the area that, houses a lot of your reasoning, your emotions, decision making, was not there. Even when I said, what do you want to do? Do you have anything on your bucket list? Do you want to go somewhere? Like, I'm thinking, I don't know, Italy, France. I'm thinking like big scope. And he basically said, we can just go up to Jim's Smoking Q, which is a local barbecue place about 45 minutes away. And I'm like thinking, oh my goodness, like, wow, he has really, and this shift happened fairly quickly, though in retrospect, looking back, I now can see all of those signs. And the neurologist explained it in a great way, which I do try to encourage people to look at. So like he says it's like a funnel, and on the funnel, it's really wide. And so you'll have lots of different symptoms on the wide part of the funnel, but as the disease progresses, the funnel gets more narrow, and so then all of the symptoms kind of look more similar. And so with frontotemporal dementia, There's three variants, and I know you know all this, but for your listeners, there's the behavioral variant, then there's the semantic, and then the primary progressive aphasia. So they call it PPA. And sadly, Jason's diagnosis was the behavioral, and they diagnosed it based on the symptoms that the patient or the individual is experiencing. So for him, it was behavioral. It was the disconnection. They easily angered. I do remember closer to that diagnosis, him lashing out and us discussing maybe you should get counseling. This just doesn't seem like you. He couldn't let things go. There was an issue with our taxes that we had filed, and it was a simple fix, but he just could not get past it. So the behavioral variant is actually the one that is harder to diagnose because people write it off as mentally ill, addiction, you name it. They think you got too much going on, you're stressed, you're anxious, maybe this is depression. A lot of forms of mental illness, kind of behavioral can fall into that, especially with the age bracket. Some young 40-year-old who's healthy, reasonably healthy, active life, raising kids. And then the primary progressive aphasia, and then the semantic. The semantic is just basically the inability to understand language filtering in and not understanding kind of commands. I mean, it's more detailed. And then the primary progressive aphasia is actually the inability to speak, which sadly, my neurologist at the time, he said the crazy thing about the FTD dementia is that we just haven't had someone famous or someone well known be diagnosed with it because it's just really under the radar. It is rare. It's one of 60,000 in the United States as of the last most recent research. So it is rare because I think it's widely misdiagnosed. But sadly, Bruce Willis, I mean, he has been now diagnosed with a form of FTD, and I believe it's the PPA. So you can imagine if you can't speak, someone's thinking you're having a stroke, or they noticeably know something is wrong neurologically. Whereas if your behavior is off and you're just disconnected and you can't follow conversations with friends and you interrupt them and you only want to talk about certain things, you kind of think someone's just odd or just weird, or like someone you just don't jive with. And so that was October 2020. By January 1st, 2021 was his first major explosive blow up where it wasn't super safe to be around. Again, God had his hand on our family. We were in the lower level. And if it had not been for my parents just receiving us in, we are still currently living with my parents. Moved January. I moved upstairs with the girls, and we have been living in the upstairs portion of their home for close to 5 years now. And he is in a safe environment. It's like a memory care unit. There's keypad locks on the doors. The windows are taken care of. So he's safe. We have cameras, Ring camera. My goal is to keep him home. And in this last year, we have now gotten him on hospice. And that's due to a lot of different variables, but financially, it's very challenging. I'm now a single mom and have been for close to 5 years. I work as a nurse. I moved out of the emergency room and I now work with heart failure patients and love it, but I still have to work. And thankful for my girls' school. So there's just a lot of moving parts, and I've stayed connected with my nurse practitioner / friend / coworker that formally diagnosed him, and she thought maybe we should just look into hospice. And then that's a whole nother can, because a lot of people think hospice is so acute and they pass quickly. And there is a small portion of patients who do live longer than just a few weeks or a few months. And so thankfully, he was approved. So I have hospice come in. They come in Monday through Friday, and there's a tech that showers him. He does not speak anymore. If he does, this is just like, it gives me chills to say it, but when he does speak, he says he's going to heaven. He faithfully reads his Bible. I was just downstairs this morning and he's kneeling by his bed reading his men's devotional, and he can actually read it out loud. So he has the vocabulary to speak. It's just that he's not receiving the language coming into him much anymore. And so he's not able to follow conversations. So I have to redirect for him to, grab his toothbrush or whatever it is. And that's where we are. I've been a single mom 5 years, did not think we would be here. I'm thankful that we still are. I'm thankful that we have hugs that we can still give him. there's so much to be thankful for. And now I'm thinking, wow, I have been through a lot in this 5 years. I've learned a ton from Medicaid to Medicare, a lot of things, single parenting, emotions. I have three girls. My youngest, sadly, really just doesn't know him well, doesn't know him healthy. So we have a lot of hard conversations at our household on a daily basis. This is daily. One of my children will want to know more about heaven or Jesus or God, or why isn't God healing them? That's a big one that has been asked a lot. And so, yeah, I feel overwhelmed all the time. I will say mentally, that's been my biggest challenge. In this last 2 years out of the five, I've really, it's just shifted in me. And I have a breath of fresh air and I'm able to carry on just the weight of all this. My parents are wonderful help and support, but so that's pretty much my journey this last 5 years or since 2018. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I mean, your story gives me chills. It makes me tear up. I mean, I was just imagining when you're in the church and you're saying your vows to your husband, you never
Mhm.
think that this is how your life is going to turn
So
out. You
true.
know what I mean? This wasn't the trajectory you saw. It makes me teary talking about looking at your husband in that church, thinking this is what your marriage was going to be. But you are such a devoted wife and you love him so dearly, and your faith is so evident in your relationship. I have some experience, obviously, with my job about dementia. I work with geriatrics. However, I have my own personal experience because my father had dementia.
Yes. Yeah.
His was not necessarily classified as FTD, but a lot of the atrophy of his brain was in the frontal and temporal lobe.
Mhm.
So he had a lot of similar, very similar personality shifts, but it
Yes.
is the longest
It,
goodbye and the
it,
saddest, you know?
as deep as my faith is and as how much I love the Lord, you still humanly experience all the feelings of sadness, grief. Grief, I've realized, is not like linear. Like, it's not like we get a diagnosis or a death and then we just keep moving on. It's just like cyclical. We know the stages of grief, but to watch a loved one become such a different person, and then you're grieving the person that they're becoming, but you're also grieving the person they were, and then you're grieving kids that they don't have the person that you knew, and then they're changed so much, so it's such a complicated grief that it just keeps going, the circle just keeps going. But
You
yes.
said that so well. I feel like you said something that I could not get out in my own brain. Yes, exactly. All of those things.
Yeah.
And grief is tricky. It's love with nowhere to go. You know, you have all this love for someone with nowhere to give it because they can't receive it given their cognitive
So true.
deficit.
It's so true.
I had some questions about
Yes.
the whole story and the whole journey.
Yeah.
So, in terms of his medical diagnosis, I know he's on hospice now. What did they say was his prognosis? Do they give you, a certain time frame? What
They
was
did.
that take?
So
Yeah.
at the time, I researched a lot, and I do look up, Association of FTD.org, Mayo Clinic. There's a lot of research, areas out there you can look at. But at the time, it was 2 to 6 years from the time of onset of symptoms. And then I could rewind and before his diagnosis think, "Oh, back in 2018 or back in 2017, I noticed, little bits of the disease starting. Um, but I don't know if they truly know, but he was given like 2 to 5, 2 to 6 years. So the fact that we're like at the five, I think it was 2 to 5 now that I think about it, because we're at that 5 year mark. So that was the time frame they gave me.
Yeah. With my father, he was diagnosed at age 67, and this was, a while ago, over 10 years ago. There wasn't a whole lot of treatment. There's a lot more now. You have Leqembi specifically for Alzheimer's. What did
Yeah.
they tell you in terms of treatment for FTD?
As far as treatment, sadly, it was managing symptoms. So, part of the story I didn't share was that I did get the diagnosis, thankfully, so quickly, but I felt that I did need to give him an opportunity for a second opinion, which it was. It was followed up with the same diagnosis at the brain center down in Atlanta. And at the time, I did try to enter him into research, and he was not approved. So, I think that, that is also part of the processing of the weight that just hits you, that you're responsible for someone's health, and then are you making all the right choices, and then every choice moving forward, should I do this, and you have all these voices. Thankfully, God has given me that peace, and along the way, even though I may have struggled here and there, God has given me a significant amount of peace to know that this is what I should be doing for him. But sadly, there wasn't a lot. It was managing his symptoms.
Yeah.
So I took multiple drugs to try to get him on. And then, you have to wean him off. You can't just take things off quickly. So it was about a 6-month process of getting him on the right medications to handle his behaviors. Like the frontal lobe, there's no breaks in the frontal lobe. Like the physician told me, it's like he's driving a car and he doesn't have brakes and he sees the road signs, or he'll see the curve, or he'll see the detour, and he just can't stop. And he has enough reasoning still to know that there's this huge barricade, and he knows how to get over the barricade, but he doesn't understand that that's like a huge cliff. So obviously safety concerns were a huge portion of managing his symptoms and managing it quickly because of that simple fact. Like, he still wanted to drive and try, having to take his keys away. It was just a lot of things that it was just managing symptoms. So
Yeah.
sadly, I hope that there's more out there. I mean, I'm now hearing a lot more things that could be more beneficial and helpful for her specific kind of disease. But
Yeah. Yeah. And my father had similar personality shifts and sundowning. And,
yeah,
he started out at the really nice assisted living facilities and then over the years got into a lot of trouble, which is so unlike him. Yeah. And so not like him at all. He was a sweet, kind guy. And so eventually, by the time he had passed away, he was in like, it looked like a prison, just like steel and
so
lockdown. And yeah. And he tried to escape every day. Every day he would try to escape that place. And so
sorry.
me and him, he was a phenomenal runner. We would run circles around and around and around and
Yes.
around his room or the common
Even
area.
that's great. I mean, you have
Mm,
those wonderful memories with him, even though
yeah.
you've walked through. I think that was our connection too later once he got diagnosed, is that I know that you walked through so much similar things, and it's hard to explain what you're actually walking through. Like, hard to explain that, he's in the lower level, there's doors out there that are locked, but he'll wave and want to get out. But I
Mhm.
can't get him back in. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I can't safely get him back in, or he will potentially do things in the neighborhood that are not appropriate. You know, Likewise, he
Yeah.
would have never done that.
Right.
Such a wonderful father and husband, and he would just be mortified to know that he would be saying these things or doing these things. So it's hard. It's heartbreaking too.
Yeah, that was really hard, like losing their dignity,
Oh,
essentially. I don't know. Did you ever, the way I looked at it was like, did you ever watch Back to the Future?
yeah.
Did
Oh,
you ever
yeah.
see those movies? Do you know where like slowly the person in the picture is like going invisible? That's what it was like. It was like I was watching him slowly just become invisible, and the legacy that he had made was just slowly fading away. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch that from someone you love so much?
I never thought about that, but I will now. I mean, our favorite movie was The Notebook, and I
Hmm.
can't watch it because it's
Yeah.
it's like that point where they will have lucid moments, and
Hmm.
it's very true. I mean, the movie depicted it very well, I believe, because they do all of a sudden have a lucid moment, and
Yeah.
it's like just trying to hold on to that moment. But like you said, slowly seeing the picture fade of the person that you love and knew and was like my best friend,
Yeah.
is hard. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you one more medical question. I learned in school FTD is it could be caused for a multitude of things, genetic factors, head trauma, lifestyle. Did they give you any insight on what could have caused your
Yeah,
husband's diagnosis?
that's a good question. He did, after he got his MRI and we had the second opinion. He did get his spinal tap done to check for protein, and it's the tau protein. I mean, people can do more research for it. Alzheimer's gene, and he did not carry the Alzheimer's trait. They did say that was a good thing, though it put him into two different other categories. And the one category is if he has a direct family that does get diagnosed with it, which would be his sister, who is 15, 16 months younger than him. If she were to have dementia in the future, there may be a possible link there. And then if not, then he just falls into the category they're still trying to figure out. But he did not have like any head trauma, no major illnesses or sicknesses when he was a child. His mother was adopted, so we do not know a ton from her biological parents, but she does not, or has not been, does not have dementia or Alzheimer's, and neither does his father. So not a lot of hope. And I will say, I think when someone says 2020, if you're old enough, you remember there was a lot going on in 2020. COVID, no support groups. I mean, everything was locked down. All of his visits were over Zoom, except the spinal tap or the lumbar puncture. And so it was a very isolating season. And then on top of that, there was not a lot of things that they could offer me hope wise, at that time.
That's wild, girl. And when you put it like that, being a nurse during COVID was big T trauma.
Oh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
Oh, I mean, like I said, I truly believe everything happens for a reason. And, I had been wanting to get out of the emergency room. I had been doing it for 12, 13 years. I was just getting tired. And then this happened. And not that COVID in any way was a blessing, but I really didn't share a lot of like what was happening. Maybe about a handful of my coworkers knew. And one in particular was a charge nurse or the few charge nurses. And thankfully, I mean, those days that I had to work 12 hours, I mean, I worked in the emergency room for about 6, 7 months after his diagnosis, and they were hard. I mean, I cried for 7 months straight every day. I remember hiding in the closet so my girls don't see me crying. But when I would walk to work, they had me the majority of the time. I was out in triage and screening. And, it's not I mean, I took care of critical patients in there, but I wasn't like really, as we call it, humping it in the back. But it was a lot. It was stressful. I get yelled at, just the emotional side of just what COVID, that whole entire, it was hard. All I can say is it was hard. I don't even know if I have words for it, but I was
Yeah.
thankful because I literally just had one job to do, and my coworkers were great, but it
Yeah.
was not a great season of life.
Yeah, I was a labor and delivery nurse during COVID, so still in the hospital setting,
Yeah.
and then eventually went to grad school during that time. So I saw a lot of the facilities. But let me tell you, the scariest place to be was the ER. I remember it was like walking into an Ebola outbreak. Everyone was in the hazmat suits, the triple N95s, like it was the ER was so the ER and the ICU got it the worst.
For sure. And I'm downplaying that. I mean, I contracted COVID from being there in the emergency room, and I was sick for an entire month. Like I was out of work for an entire month, all during all of this going on. I mean, the pappers, the whole 9 yards. I mean, it was, I think that but when you are an emergency room nurse, you just learn to compartmentalize, and things aren't as big a deal until you look back maybe years later, like you're saying, and thinking, wow, that was a lot. Just working there during that time was a lot. And then just getting a diagnosis about your husband, and then just being full fledged. I mean, from the time you got diagnosed, it was just me. I mean,
Yeah.
single parenting, just which I know so many people experience, like sudden death or just from people walking out. I mean, it's just not easy. I mean, but yeah, definitely not any easier during COVID. That's for sure.
I wanted to ask you when you started to notice your husband's symptoms, was FTD ever on your radar? Because I don't think it would have been on mine.
Never dealt through counseling. I really had to process that and lay that down because I did feel some sort of guilt in two ways. I felt guilty because I didn't recognize, and then I felt guilty because I was relieved because he had changed so much that when I finally got the diagnosis, I was relieved because there was something to put to his symptoms, and that it wasn't me or our marriage but never. I mean, part of the diagnosis, there is a portion to where they become kind of like a hypochondriac. And I remember we share the same primary care physician, but I remember that year leading up, it was just, he always thought there was something wrong. And I really think that he knew something was wrong. Like when I sobbed on the driveway the night that I came home from work and he had walked out of work, and my coworker's friend, nurse practitioner friend, she was so great because she said, just keep your composure. Don't be angry because this is not Jason, but if you can record him and then send it to me. So I did exactly that. And he told me on the couch, he said, I just feel like there's something. And he went like this, and he said, wrong with my brain. And it just sunk. So at that point, yes. But the months leading up to, I thought, I didn't know what was going on. Truthfully, I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't have ever, that would
Yeah.
have not been on my radar. Everything
Yes.
else would have been, but not that. So
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to
The-
ask you about spirituality. So I know you already had such a good, solid foundation in your faith. When you're hit with big life events like this,
yeah.
how do you not be angry with God
Mhm.
when these things happen?
That is such a good question. I Do feel like when you have experienced the goodness of God in your life and the love of Him, it changes you so much that you can't deny it. So then when you do experience a crisis, a trauma, a death, He's still so close. He tells us He's close to the brokenhearted. He draws near to us. That when I did get that diagnosis, a wave, it was just a wave just came over me of peace. I do remember sobbing on the phone with my friend. And then when I hung up, I just prayed and bawled, and I felt God's peace just pass over me. And that's the scripture, the peace that passes all understanding will guide your heart and mind. And I think that a large portion of me being able to stay focused, stay hopeful, and not be angry is to understand who God is. If God is who He says He says He's the same yesterday as He is today, as He will be tomorrow. He says He's good, He's loving, He's faithful, He's kind. So if He can't change from all those things, then He's still good. He's still loving. But my circumstances are changing. But that doesn't mean that He has changed and His love towards me hasn't changed. So I do think that it's a shift in your mind when it comes to your spiritual walk, that if you're chasing a God that's going to be who you want Him to be based on your circumstances, divorce, addiction, depression, schizophrenia, mental health, and you look at God without His lens, then He's going to be this ever changing God, and He's not going to be there for you. But He will always be there for you, but you're not going to see Him be there for you. But if you decide to put His lens on and you look through life through Him, you will still see the goodness of Him. You'll still see His faithfulness. You'll still see His love. And I think that tapers the anger. I'm sad, and I try not to confuse my sadness with my anger. And when I do feel angry, it's usually because of discontentment. I'm just discontent, upset I'm still in this house, or I'm upset I don't have my own place. I mean, there's a lot of things that I struggle with the discontentments, portion of it, but I've never been angry with Him, because really, truly, I don't know that I wouldn't call myself a Christian, because we're following Christ to be like Christ. It doesn't mean bad things, hard things aren't going to happen in our life. So it's a good question, but I have been asked that often. And a
Yeah.
coworker asked me that shortly after. She's like, "How are you not angry?" I'm like, "Because He's still good. Just because my situation, circumstance changed, it doesn't change who He is, Yeah. I mean, I guess that's my best go at it.
No, that was a very profound, very full answer. The way you explained it was absolutely beautiful. So I wanted to ask you, how do you explain what's going on with your husband to your children?
I can't remember if it was just a coworker or something, but they tell you in parenting to try just to only give answers of what they're asking and not to go over in depth too much. But I have told them that Daddy's sick and his brain is sick. And my oldest, the one that when we met you in labor and delivery, she is going on 12. And so she was around first grade at the time. And so she experienced a lot of the trauma, the things, his behavior, his yelling, all the things. So I have had to focus a little bit more on her explaining that this really isn't daddy. He has a disease. But as my middle child and then my youngest, they never saw that portion. They didn't experience any of that. And so it's really daddy's sick, and his brain is sick, and we can pray for God to heal him. And if God chooses not to heal him, He's going to heal him by taking him to heaven to be with Him. And that we need to be assured of our own salvation so that we will see Daddy one day. And that's pretty much the basis of what we go into. Here recently, they talk about, what does death look like? What happens to your body? Does he get buried? Is there a funeral? What is a funeral? So when I say we have these hard conversations, I've been having hard conversations for 5 years. If it's not just with my kids, it's with family members, direct family members, making decisions. Should we get them on hospice? But when it comes to the kids, I've just kind of tried to only give short answers, enough to where they can process. And then if they ask more questions, we just go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. My last question before the lightning round. I
Yeah.
know you are big about the church. You work in the church and you
Yes.
volunteer and you do so much for the community. What are your goals moving forward? Like, where do you see your trajectory in the next 5, 10 years?
That is such a good question. I'm really feeling like a breath of fresh air, as far as I feel like, because my children are older, they can buckle their own car seats and get their own cereal if they need to. That I have a little bit more time and energy. I'm still work as a nurse, but I would really love to just educate people on um, FTD, to notice the signs, to be able to help better. And then to also really, I feel this calling to help single moms because I literally look back and there are some friends that I've had that are single moms, or whether it's not from a death, but it could be from a divorce and still you're still single mom. I mean, even if you go visit dads or spouses, ex-spouses, they carry a weight that is unexplainable, like making all the decisions. It's you to discipline, it's you to hug, it's you to love, it's you to put to bed, it's you to pray, make the meals, the laundry, the gas, the tires rotated. I mean, the list just keeps going on and on. And also your caregiving. So it would be something with single moms and also caregivers. I would love to be an encouragement to them and to provide an opportunity where they would just feel loved. I don't know exactly what that looks like in the future, but I do feel like I have more of a calling towards single moms. Yeah.
You have such a service heart. You give back so much.
Thank
And
you.
it's such an honor to have you share your story of hope
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
just to, share this space with you. It's been truly, truly a beautiful, beautiful story. So thank you for sharing.
I appreciate you. Truly the joy of the Lord is my strength. And it's really just in Him. I can't do this without Him. Like I'm not
Yeah.
perfect. I make mistakes. I have moments, bad mom moments, but genuinely, I mean, like we're here for one reason, and it's to give God glory. So whatever happens in my life, my goal is just to glorify Him. So yeah, and giving back. I mean, it's great to be able to serve and not always think about your own problems. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
To get out of your own head. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
always in
Yeah.
my head.
Yeah.
I look up to you in many ways. I mean, I look up to you as a nurse. I look up to you as a mother. I looked up to you as someone who has a spiritual faith I hope to have one day. So I
Yes.
learned a lot from you in this episode about your
Oh,
strength. But
that's hard to believe. That's hard to believe.
yeah,
I
the
look up
way
to
you
you.
the way you were explaining, how to not be angry, all of that, I was like,
Yeah.
that was banking in my brain. I'm
Yeah.
gonna
I
remember
hope
that forever.
so. Yeah, I hope so. It's probably because I've learned it from someone else. So it's not because I came up with it on my own.
Well, it was enough for me to learn from you tonight
Good,
for sure.
good.
Well, we made it to the lightning round of our
Here we go.
show.
Here we
These are fun questions because our listeners get very invested in who you are after they hear
go.
your story.
Okay.
So,
Yes, I
the
hope so.
first question is you're given three options. You can shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive. Which one are you choosing?
It's got to be skydive because
Okay.
I got to face my fear. I hate
Okay.
heights. Megan, did you know that I hate heights? I just got to do it. And maybe I'll get
Yeah.
over it. I don't know, but definitely I'll just skydive. Why not?
Okay. We'll do
Yeah.
it together. I'll do it with you.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that would be fun. That would be good.
That would be fun. Number two, you're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
What an Awesome God by Phil Wickham. I mean,
I
I
love
can
that.
listen to that on repeat. I listened to Hymn of
Beautiful.
Heaven by him too. If you haven't, it's wonderful. But Hymn of
Yeah,
Heaven, I listened to it for the first 2, 3 years every day to help
I
me
love that.
stay focused on heaven and know that Jason's going to heaven. So yeah, Phil Wickham's, yeah, I like that. But What an Awesome God is one of his newer songs. So yeah, I could worship to that like anytime, any day.
I love that. I will add that one to my worship playlist. I listen to worship music every morning when I get ready for work because when you're
So
getting
great.
ready for work, you can relate to this because you also have three kids. It's like such a stressful time. I'm like, got to do this, got to do that, got to get to there on
Yes,
time. My patient's waiting.
worship.
And it calms me down.
God is good in that way. He gives us music. That's the only thing I listen to because I just realized my time with him was very short, to be able to spend with him. So, but I'm in the car all the time. Worship music, just Christian music alone, just helps me recenter and refocus and focus on what is most important. Yeah. So, but
Yeah,
I don't
love
know why
it.
I feel Wickham's voice. He just gets me. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of CC Winans. I had a patient tell me, she was like, you have got to go listen to this song. It will change your life. And I swear it's my number one played song on my playlist.
I mean, she's on my playlist. I love
Yeah.
CC, but the goodness
Mm.
of God is like one of my faves too. Yeah.
Just a gorgeous
It
song.
is.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse for
She
sure.
is. Yeah. All right. Number three. What is your favorite Disney movie?
Cinderella. I don't know.
A
I just am old
classic.
school. All the newer ones, even the newer Cinderella, I love too. But it just makes me happy. Like I don't
Yeah.
know. In the
He
end,
worked
love
hard.
wins.
Yeah. He
Yeah,
worked really hard for her. He went all over town, like working hard to
yeah,
get her. Like he put in some effort and
so
I
true.
respect that.
And she worked hard.
She
I mean,
did.
yeah, like, she worked hard too. I think, like,
Yeah.
she didn't have any expectations for her life, and it just
Hmm.
happened. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're
love
right.
him.
I agree with that. I love
Yeah.
that. Number 4, what is something you're obsessed with?
I don't have many hobbies as a single mom with 3 kids, as you know, and work. But I think what I would obsessed with, this is so crazy. I love architecture and design.
Okay.
Isn't that odd? I
No,
could
I
look
think
at
that's
floor
awesome.
plans all day long. I
I think
just
that's interesting.
like map out, like, should you put the laundry room, like, why do you put a laundry room away from
Mhm.
all the bedrooms? Like, who's gonna be carrying that laundry? It's
Yeah.
the mom up
Yeah.
and downstairs. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I love floor plans. I love design.
I think that's interesting. I think it taps into the creative brain, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm not super creative, so I think that's the only creative side that I have, but yeah, we'll go with
All
it.
right, last question, number 5. What does freedom mean to you?
Freedom is just Jesus. I mean, we're all sinners. We make mistakes. Walking a life with him is so much better than not. So, I mean, the people who choose not to follow him or walk with him, they're still going to have grief. Death still happens. Sickness still happens. Sadness still happens. Diseases still happens. Diagnosis still happens. So it's like much better to walk with him than without. So, I mean, that's what I think of freedom, is I think of Christ and what he did for me. Yeah.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
I can't thank you enough. It's
No,
such
it's been fun.
extremely vulnerable to sit here and
Yeah.
share the hard parts of your life, the grief,
Mhm.
the, sadness, the struggles, but you do it and you do it with poise and you do it with grace. And that's what helps other people get through their hard times.
I hope, girl, because we got to be in this together. We got to be on the
Yeah.
same side, just
Yeah.
encouraging one another. That's all
I'm
we
on
can.
your team. I'm on the
Yes,
same team as you.
you've always been. I always hit you up. I always texting you. But I appreciate you too. Thanks for just giving me the opportunity to share about him and keep his legacy and life alive. I think sometimes we forget that he's still living and he's here for a reason and God's still using him. And so I appreciate you letting me share him and in that way and to encourage people who are walking through similar things or are going to, but I appreciate you too. And I love you.
Yeah. Yes, girl. I love you too. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.